Most people believe power comes from explaining themselves well. That belief is the first chain around your neck. A person who constantly explains is not clarifying reality. They are begging for permission to exist. And the moment you begin begging for permission, someone else becomes the judge. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. In The Prince, he observed that rulers survive not by proving themselves innocent, but by controlling perception. Power never asks to be understood. Power establishes the frame. Before we go deeper into this psychology, understand something. This channel exists for people who are tired of living inside other people's narratives. People who want sovereignty of mind. If that is the direction you are moving in, step inside and subscribe, not as a favor to me, as a declaration that you are done asking the crowd for approval. Now, let us dissect the trap. Most people react to accusations like children standing in front of authority. Someone questions their competence, someone twists their words. Someone throws a subtle insult into the room. Instantly, the nervous system panics. The explanation begins. You list facts, you provide context, you clarify intentions, but Machiavelli warned that a prince must never appear weak before his subjects. Weakness invites challenge, and explanation is a confession of vulnerability. Because explanation secretly says one thing: you have the authority to judge me. The moment that sentence exists between two people, the hierarchy is already decided. Think about childhood. A teacher accuses you, a parent questions you. Your only path to safety was explanation. I didn't do it. It wasn't my fault. Let me explain. The brain learned that survival requires convincing the authority figure. But adulthood never removed that program. Now the boss becomes the authority. Your partner becomes the authority. A stranger online becomes the authority. And you begin performing in a courtroom that does not exist. Machiavelli wrote that men judge more by the eye than by the hand. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few understand what you are. So when you rush to defend yourself, people do not analyze your logic. They observe your energy. And the energy of defense always carries the scent of submission. Now imagine a different reaction. Someone says you are selfish. The old pattern rushes forward with evidence. I did this for you yesterday. I sacrificed for everyone. I always help. But the sovereign response is silence. You look at them, you hold eye contact. You allow the air to thicken. Silence is psychological gravity. It pulls attention toward itself. Most people cannot tolerate it. The human brain interprets silence during conflict as instability, and instability terrifies people. When you refuse to fill the silence, the attacker begins filling it themselves. They soften the accusation. They begin clarifying. They start defending their own statement. The entire power structure flips. Machiavelli would have recognized this immediately. The ruler who speaks least reveals the least. And the person who reveals the least cannot easily be controlled. But silence is only the first weapon. There is another strategy that creates even deeper confusion: agreement. Not the weak agreement of submission, the cold agreement of control. Imagine someone attacks your character. You are arrogant. Most people panic and defend their morality. But the Machiavellian move is simple. You might be right, then you stop talking. What happens next is psychological collapse. The attacker prepared for resistance. They expected a fight. They built momentum. But when you remove resistance, their energy falls into emptiness. This technique is sometimes called fogging. When a rock is thrown into a wall, it bounces back. When it is thrown into fog, it disappears. The fog absorbs the attack, and suddenly the aggressor looks ridiculous, holding a sword in empty air. But the deepest power does not come from silence or agreement. It comes from identity. Machiavelli wrote that a prince must construct himself deliberately. Identity is architecture. If you do not design your identity, the crowd will design it for you. That is what accusations are. Identity traps. You're lazy. You're selfish. You're difficult. If you fight the label, you are already inside the box. But if you exaggerate it, the box dissolves. You're obsessed with money. Yes, I swim through gold coins every Tuesday like a cartoon villain. Now the attack has lost its seriousness. You turned their weapon into theater, and theater destroys hostility. This is called amused mastery. It is the psychological posture of someone who does not feel threatened. Imagine a parent watching a toddler scream. The parent is not frightened. The parent is amused. That energy signals hierarchy. Now we arrive at the real Machiavellian shift. Conversations secretly contain roles. There is always a judge and a defendant. The judge asks questions. The defendant answers. Why did you do that? What were you thinking? Who do you think you are? Whoever answers loses status. The sovereign move is simple. Refuse the role. Turn the question back. Why does that bother you so much? What made you interpret it that way? Why does my decision affect you this strongly? Suddenly the spotlight shifts. Now they are explaining themselves, and you are observing. That moment is the birth of psychological dominance. By the way, if you are beginning to see how different the world looks when you stop reacting like everyone else, this is the exact moment many people step deeper into this mindset. Subscribing here is not about notifications. It is about stepping into the architect level of thinking where you design your own frame instead of living inside someone else's. Now, let us confront the uncomfortable truth. None of these techniques work if you are secretly insecure. If someone calls you incompetent and it wounds you deeply, silence will not save you. Because they touched a part of you that already believes the accusation. This is why Machiavelli insisted that a ruler must understand human nature, including his own. The ultimate defense is not verbal. It is self-knowledge. If someone calls you selfish and you already know you can be selfish, the insult dissolves. If someone calls you flawed and you have already confronted your flaws, the weapon disappears. You cannot shame a person who has already accepted their shadow. The world attacks where it smells insecurity, and insecurity leaks through tone, posture, and energy, which brings us to the final transformation. For the next week, experiment with a radical rule: no defense. If you are late, simply say you are late. If you made a mistake, say you made a mistake. If someone misunderstands you, allow the misunderstanding to exist. Do not rush to repair their perception. Watch what happens. Most people live addicted to approval. When you withdraw that addiction, the social dynamics around you begin to rearrange. People sense certainty, and certainty is magnetic. Machiavelli wrote that men are controlled either by fear or by respect. In modern life, respect is born from emotional independence. The moment you stop explaining yourself, people realize something. You do not need them to validate your identity. And that realization makes you unpredictable. Unpredictable people are difficult to control. Difficult to control people become powerful. If this perspective speaks to the darker, more strategic side of your mind, remain here. Subscribe not because you were told to, but because you are choosing to leave the herd mentality and begin thinking like the architect of your own power.